The metal corridors of Earth Station Alpha hummed with quiet activity as another ordinary day passed in human space. Cargo ships docked and departed, traders exchanged goods, and diplomats from various alien species conducted their usual business. Nobody expected that this Tuesday would change the course of galactic history. Ambassador Talon of the Calorian Republic stepped off his small transport ship with shaking hands. His blue-scaled skin had lost its natural shine, and his large golden eyes showed the weight of sleepless nights. Behind him, two younger Calorians carried data tablets and star charts, their movements nervous and quick. The human customs officer barely looked up from his screen. Purpose of visit? Diplomatic emergency, Talon replied in careful English. I must speak with your military leaders immediately. 20 minutes later, Talon sat across from Admiral Rodriguez in a sterile conference room. The Admiral was a stocky man with gray hair and tired eyes who had seen enough alien politics to remain calm during most situations. He poured coffee from a metal pot and studied the Calorian diplomat. So what brings you all the way to human space, Ambassador? Rodriguez asked, settling into his chair. Talon activated a holographic display that showed a star map. Red markers indicated systems under attack, while blue ones showed Calorian territory shrinking day by day. Admiral, my people are dying. The Vorthan Empire has declared war on the Calorian Republic. They claim we violated their trade agreements, but the truth is simpler. They want our worlds. Rodriguez leaned forward, studying the map. The Vorthons controlled a massive section of space, their territory marked in aggressive orange. The Calorian systems looked tiny in comparison, like islands about to be swallowed by an ocean. How many Vorthons are we talking about? Rodriguez asked. Their fleet numbers over 800 ships. They have conquered 47 species in the last century. My people, Talon's voice cracked slightly. We have maybe 60 ships capable of fighting. Most are cargo transports with basic weapons. The Admiral nodded slowly. Human intelligence had files on the Vorthons. They were known as efficient conquerors who used overwhelming force and superior numbers to crush resistance quickly. Most species surrendered after the first battle. What exactly are you asking for, Ambassador? Talon straightened in his chair, trying to project confidence he did not feel. We need transport ships. Our remaining population is 50 million beings, spread across 12 worlds. If we can evacuate them to the Outer Rim territories, some of us might survive. We can offer payment in rare metals and scientific data. Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. He had expected a request for weapons or military support. This was just about saving lives. How long do you have? The Vorthons move slowly but steadily. They take one system, strip its resources, then move to the next. Based on their pattern, we estimate 6 months before they reach our core worlds, maybe less. The Admiral stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. 50 million people. That's a lot of transport capacity. We understand humans are new to galactic affairs, Talon said quickly. But your cargo ships are efficient, and you have a reputation for fairness. We are not asking you to fight our war. Just help us save our families. Rodriguez turned back to face the Calorian. And after we evacuate your people? What happens to your worlds? Talon's shoulders sagged. The Vorthons will take them. They always do. They will strip mine our planets and use them as forward bases for their next conquest. But at least our children will live to see other stars. The Admiral sat down again and pulled up his communication panel. I need to make some calls. Can you wait here for a few hours? Of course, Talon replied. Thank you for listening, Admiral. Most species would have sent us away already. Rodriguez smiled grimly. Humans have a thing about bullies, Ambassador. We don't like them much. As the Admiral left the room, Talon settled back in his chair with relief. The humans seemed willing to help, and their cargo fleet was known throughout this sector. Maybe his people had a chance after all. But in his relief, Talon had missed something important in the Admiral's expression. It was not the look of someone planning a rescue operation. It was the look of someone who had just heard about an injustice that needed to be corrected. Admiral Rodriguez walked straight to the secure communication center and opened channels to Earth, Mars Command, and the Jupiter Defense Fleet. Within minutes, he was speaking to generals, admirals, and government officials across the solar system. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "we have a situation. A peaceful species called the Calorians is being wiped out by something called the Vorthan Empire. They came here asking for transport ships to evacuate their people." President Walsh appeared on the main screen from her office in Washington. "How many people are we talking about, Admiral?" 50 million, Madam President, spread across 12 worlds. They have maybe 6 months before the enemy reaches their core systems." "What do we know about these Vorthans?" asked General Kim from Mars Command. Rodriguez pulled up intelligence files. "Bad news. They have conquered 47 species in the last century. 800 ships. They use overwhelming force and take no prisoners. Classic military empire expansion." The room was quiet for a moment. Then President Walsh spoke again. "Admiral, what did you tell the Calorian ambassador?" "That I needed to make some calls. He is waiting for our answer." "Here is our answer," the president said firmly. "Nobody commits genocide on our watch. Not anymore. Not while humanity has ships and weapons and the will to use them." Admiral Rodriguez smiled for the first time that day. "So we are doing this?" "We are doing this," confirmed General Kim. "But we are not just evacuating people, Admiral. We are going to solve this problem permanently." As communication channels opened across human space, orders began flowing to every military base, shipyard, and defense station. The Calorian ambassador sat in his conference room hoping for a dozen transport ships. He had no idea that humanity was about to mobilize the largest military fleet in its short history. Outside the viewport, stars twinkled peacefully in the void. Soon, those same stars would witness something the galaxy had never seen before. Humans going to war not for conquest or resources, but simply because someone had asked for help. The age of human intervention in galactic affairs was about to begin, and it would start with a simple question that would echo across the stars. What happens when you ask humans for help? The answer, as the Vorthans would soon discover, was far more than anyone expected. Within 2 hours of Admiral Rodriguez's communications, every major government building on Earth buzzed with emergency activity. In Washington, President Walsh called an immediate session of the Global Defense Council. In Beijing, Moscow, London, and New Delhi, ministers canceled their schedules and gathered around secure video links. Ambassador Talon waited patiently in his conference room, sipping water and reviewing star charts. He expected the humans to offer maybe 15 or 20 transport ships. That would be generous for a species barely 50 years into space travel. Meanwhile, in the Situation Room beneath the White House, President Walsh faced a wall of screens, showing military commanders from across the solar system. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," she said, looking at her notes. "A peaceful alien species is about to be wiped out by an empire that has already destroyed 47 other civilizations. They came to us asking for help to evacuate their people. Is that right?" "Yes, Madam President," Admiral Rodriguez confirmed from his station. 50 million civilians across 12 worlds. The enemy has 800 warships. The Calorians have maybe 60 ships, mostly cargo vessels. General Hayes from Luna Base spoke up. "Madam President, our intelligence shows the Vorthans have a clear pattern. They don't just conquer, they eliminate entire species. No survivors, no prisoners. Complete extermination." The room fell silent. President Walsh had grown up hearing stories about genocides in human history. Her grandmother had survived one. The thought of standing by while another species faced extinction made her stomach turn. "What are our fleet capabilities?" she asked. Admiral Chen from the Jupiter Defense Fleet pulled up tactical displays. "We have 312 active warships, ranging from destroyers to battlecruisers. 247 support vessels. 86 colony ships that could be converted for troop transport." "Logistics?" the president asked. "We can have the first fleet ready to move in 72 hours, reported General Martinez from Mars Command. The second and third fleets would need a week for full deployment. President Walsh stood and walked to the large map showing human space. Red dots marked their military bases, green ones showed civilian colonies. It was impressive for a species that had been in space for less than a century. "Here is what we are going to do," she announced. "We are not just evacuating the Calorians, we are stopping the Vorthons permanently." Admiral Rodriguez blinked in surprise. "Madam President, that would mean going to war with an empire that has never lost a conflict." "Then it's time they learned what losing feels like," Walsh replied firmly. "Gentlemen, I want every available ship ready for deployment. This is not a rescue mission, this is a liberation campaign." As orders flowed across the solar system, something unprecedented began happening in human space. Shipyards that normally built cargo vessels started converting them into troop transports. Weapons factories increased production to triple shifts. Civilian contractors volunteered their ships for military service. On Mars, General Kim watched thousands of Marines boarding transport ships. These were not regular soldiers. They were volunteers who had heard about the Calorian situation and demanded to be part of the response. The recruitment offices had been flooded with applications. "Sir," his aide reported, "we have more volunteers than ships to carry them." General Kim smiled grimly. "Then we make more ships. Fast." In the asteroid belt, mining operations shifted overnight to extracting materials for warship construction. On Luna, weapons labs worked around the clock developing new systems specifically designed to fight Vorthan technology. Dr. Parker, the head of human defense research, studied intelligence files on Vorthan ships. "Their hulls are thick but not flexible," she noted to her team. "They rely on heavy frontal armor and overwhelming firepower. They are not used to enemies who think creatively." "What do you recommend?" asked her assistant. "Give our ships more speed and maneuverability. Add weapons they have never seen before. And make sure every ship can hurt them badly even if it goes down fighting." Meanwhile, back on Earth Station Alpha, Admiral Rodriguez returned to the conference room where Ambassador Talon waited. The Calorian looked up hopefully as the Admiral entered. "Ambassador, I have good news," Rodriguez began. "Humanity has decided to help your people." Talon's golden eyes brightened. "Wonderful. How many transport ships can you provide?" "Even 10 would be." "We are sending our entire fleet," Rodriguez interrupted quietly. Talon stared at him. "I'm sorry. I don't understand. Your entire cargo fleet?" "No, Ambassador. Our entire military fleet. 300 warships plus support vessels and colony ships. We are not evacuating your people. We are liberating them." The Calorian's mouth opened and closed several times. "Admiral, I think there has been a misunderstanding. We cannot pay for military intervention. We only asked for transport ships." Rodriguez sat down across from him. "Ambassador, let me explain something about humans. When someone asks us for help against bullies, we don't just move the victims. We stop the bullies. But the Vorthan Empire has 800 ships. They have never lost a war. Then they are overdue for their first loss," Rodriguez replied calmly. "Tell me about their tactics. How do they fight?" Talon was too shocked to refuse. "They use overwhelming numbers and heavy firepower. They position their largest ships in front and blast everything in their path. Most species surrender after seeing their fleet formations." The Admiral nodded, making notes. "What about their ground forces?" "They occupy planets with massive armies. They build bases quickly and control civilian populations through fear. Nobody has ever successfully resisted them on the ground." "Interesting," Rodriguez murmured. "They sound like they have never fought anyone who fights dirty." Talon looked confused. "Fights dirty?" "Guerrilla warfare, sabotage, psychological operations, hit and run tactics. Humans have been perfecting these methods for thousands of years. Ambassador, we have had a lot of practice fighting enemies with superior numbers." Outside the conference room, the first wave of human ships was already preparing to depart. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the heavy cruiser Defiance, watching his crew run final system checks. His ship was one of 50 vessels in the advance fleet. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving final tactical updates from Fleet Command." Morrison reviewed the data on his screen. Intelligence on Vorthan ship designs, their typical battle formations, and their known weaknesses. What impressed him most was how quickly human military analysts had identified flaws in Vorthan strategy. "They fight like a machine," he observed to his executive officer. "Very efficient, very predictable. They have probably never faced an enemy that adapts quickly." "Sir, what are our orders once we reach Calorian space?" Morrison smiled coldly. "Find the nearest Vorthon fleet and show them what happens when you pick on species under human protection." As the first human ships began their journey toward Calorian space, Ambassador Talon sent an emergency message to his government. "The humans are coming. All of them. This is either the best thing that has ever happened to us, or we have just started a galactic war." The message would prove to be both true and an understatement. 3 weeks after leaving Earth, the human advance fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Calorian system of Nexus Prime. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching his tactical display as 50 human warships formed into combat formation. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Davis from the communication station, "we are receiving a transmission from the planet. It's from the local Calorian Defense Force." "Put it through," Morrison ordered. A desperate voice filled the bridge. "Unknown vessels. This is Commander Nix of the Calorian Defense Fleet. Please identify yourselves. We are under attack by Vorthon forces and cannot guarantee your safety." Morrison activated the response channel. "Commander Nix, this is Captain Morrison of the Earth vessel Defiance. We are here to help. What is your tactical situation?" There was a long pause before Nix replied, his voice filled with surprise. "Did you say Earth? The humans? But how did you get here so fast, and why are there so many ships?" "We will explain later, Commander. Right now we need to know about the Vorthons. Where are they?" "A Vorthon battle fleet is holding position near our outer moon. 60 ships. They have been bombarding our defensive satellites for 2 days. We have lost most of our orbital defenses. They are preparing for a ground invasion." Captain Morrison studied his tactical display. The Vorthon fleet was arranged in a perfect formation, their largest battleships in front, medium cruisers behind them, and smaller vessels protecting the flanks. It was textbook military positioning, designed to maximize firepower and intimidate enemies. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the Vorthon fleet is moving. They have detected us and are approaching in attack formation." Morrison smiled grimly. "Perfect. Open a channel to all human ships." 50 ship captains appeared on his screen, their faces showing determination and barely controlled excitement. These were career military officers who had trained for decades but never fought a real war. Today would change that. "Ladies and gentlemen," Morrison began, "intelligence reports indicate the Vorthons have never lost a battle. They use superior numbers and overwhelming firepower to crush their enemies quickly. They expect us to either flee or surrender when we see their fleet." "What are our orders, sir?" asked Captain Webb from the destroyer Lightning. "We are going to do something they have never experienced. We are going to fight them using human tactics. No formation fighting, no honor duels. We hit them hard, fast, and in ways they don't expect." Morrison switched to the fleet-wide tactical channel. "All ships implement Protocol 7. Psychological warfare authorized. Let's show these Vorthons what humans do to bullies." The human fleet began moving in seemingly random directions, breaking every rule of traditional space combat. Instead of forming neat lines or defensive formations, the ships spread out like a pack of hunting wolves. Then the music started. Every human ship began broadcasting on all frequencies, filling space with the sound of human war songs. Heavy metal, orchestral battle themes, and ancient military marches echoed across the void. The Vorthons, who were used to the silence of space combat, found their communications disrupted by alien sounds they had never heard. General Corvus, commanding the Vorthan fleet from his massive battleship Dominator, stared at his tactical display in confusion. "What are they doing? This makes no tactical sense." His aide, Captain Vex, was equally puzzled. "Sir, their ships are moving in random patterns. They appear to be dancing." "And what is that noise?" Corvus demanded as another wave of human music filled their speakers. "We believe it is some form of psychological attack, General. The humans appear to be trying to confuse us." Corvus growled in frustration. In 50 battles against 40 different species, he had never encountered anything like this. Every other enemy had either fled immediately or arranged their ships in defensive formations that could be easily crushed. All ships maintain formation and advance, he ordered. Prepare primary weapons. We will destroy these chaotic humans quickly. But as the Vorthon fleet moved forward in their traditional formation, the human ships began implementing tactics no civilized species would consider. The destroyer Lightning suddenly accelerated to maximum speed and dove straight at the Vorthon front line, its captain broadcasting ancient Viking battle cries. "Sir, that human ship is on a collision course," Captain Vex reported in alarm. "Impossible," Corvus replied. "No commander would sacrifice his ship in a suicide attack. It must be a bluff." It was not a bluff. At the last possible moment, the Lightning fired every weapon it had directly into the hull of a Vorthon battleship, then used its emergency thrusters to spin away. The battleship, damaged and confused, fired wildly at empty space while the Lightning disappeared behind an asteroid. "What just happened?" Corvus demanded. Before anyone could answer, 3 more human ships executed similar attacks from different angles. They would appear suddenly, unleash devastating firepower at close range, then disappear before the Vorthons could respond effectively. Captain Morrison watched the chaos on his tactical display with satisfaction. All ships, continue. Hit-and-run attacks. Target their communications arrays and weapon systems. Make them blind and angry. The Vorthon fleet, designed for conventional warfare, began falling apart. Their neat formations became scattered as ships tried to track multiple fast-moving human vessels. Their heavy weapons, built for long-range bombardment, could not keep up with enemies that refused to stay in one place. "Sir," Lieutenant Davis reported excitedly, "we are getting reports from other human ships. The destroyer Phoenix just disabled a Vorthon cruiser by ramming its bridge section. The cruiser Revenge is using mining charges as improvised missiles." Morrison nodded approvingly. "Excellent. And the Vorthon's response?" "They are trying to regroup, but their formation is completely broken. They appear confused and angry." On the Vorthon flagship, General Corvus was indeed both confused and angry. His officers shouted reports from all directions as human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts, striking hard and vanishing before retaliation was possible. "General, we have lost 7 ships," Captain Vex reported. "The humans are using weapons and tactics not found in any military database." "How many humans have we destroyed?" Corvus demanded. "None, sir. We cannot get target locks on them. They move too quickly and unpredictably." For the first time in his military career, General Corvus felt something he had never experienced: doubt. His fleet still outnumbered the humans, but numbers meant nothing if he could not bring his weapons to bear effectively. "Sir," his communications officer interrupted, "we are receiving a transmission from the human fleet." "Put it through," Corvus ordered. Captain Morrison's voice filled the Vorthon bridge, calm and professional. "General Corvus, this is Captain Morrison of the Human Defense Force. You are hereby ordered to withdraw from Calorian space immediately." Corvus found his voice. "Human, you are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender now and we may allow some of you to live." Morrison's response was not what Corvus expected. The human captain laughed. "General, you just made a mistake. You threatened us. Humans really don't like being threatened." The music from the human ship suddenly changed, becoming darker and more aggressive. And in the distance, more ships began dropping out of hyperspace, dozens of them. Then hundreds. The main human fleet had arrived. General Corvus stared at his tactical display as wave after wave of human ships dropped out of hyperspace. What had started as 50 vessels was now 300, then 400. The numbers kept climbing as the main human fleet arrived in perfect coordination. "Sir," Captain Vex reported with barely controlled panic, "we count over 600 human vessels. They have battleships, carriers, support ships, and—" He paused, checking his readings again. "Sir, they have colony ships. Why would they bring colony ships to a battle?" Admiral Rodriguez's voice came through the communications system, calm and professional. General Corvus, this is Admiral Rodriguez commanding the Human Liberation Fleet. You have 30 seconds to begin withdrawing from Calorian space, or we will remove you by force. Corvus activated his response channel, trying to project confidence. He no longer felt. Admiral, you may have more ships than expected, but we are the Vorthan Empire. We have conquered 47 species. We do not retreat. Then you will learn, Rodriguez replied simply. What happened next changed space warfare forever. The human fleet did not attack in formation. Instead, individual ships began moving toward Vorthan vessels like hunters stalking prey. But these were not random attacks. Every human movement was coordinated through advanced tactical networks that allowed hundreds of ships to act as one organism. Captain Morrison, now commanding a battle group of 20 ships, received his orders through the tactical link. Morrison, take your group and neutralize the Vorthan command ship. We need their general alive for questioning. Understood, Admiral. What about their escort fleet? Disable them. We have something special planned. Morrison smiled grimly and opened a channel to his ships. All vessels, target the Vorthan flagship. Remember, we want the general alive, but everyone else is optional. The 20 human ships converged on the massive Vorthan battleship Dominator like wolves surrounding a wounded bear. But instead of attacking directly, they began something no military academy in the galaxy taught: psychological warfare in space. The human ships took positions around the Vorthan flagship and began broadcasting on all frequencies. Not music this time, but recordings of human military history, battles where humans had defeated impossible odds, stories of last stands and heroic sacrifices, the voices of human commanders who had refused to surrender even when facing certain death. What are they doing? General Corvus demanded as the strange broadcasts filled his bridge. Before anyone could answer, the human ships began their attack, but it was unlike anything the Vorthans had ever experienced. Instead of trying to destroy the flagship, the humans targeted specific systems with surgical precision. They disabled weapons, communications, and engines while leaving life support intact. Sir, they are not trying to kill us, Captain Vex realized. They are capturing us alive. This was worse than destruction. The Vorthan military culture was built on the concept of glorious death in battle. Being taken prisoner was the ultimate dishonor. While Morrison's group dealt with the flagship, other human battle groups implemented tactics that violated every rule of civilized warfare. Captain Walsh led a squadron of destroyers in boarding, actions using modified mining equipment to cut through Vorthan hull armor. Her Marines carried weapons designed for close combat in zero gravity, something no other species had ever developed. On board the Vorthan cruiser Iron Fist, Commander Rex watched in horror as human soldiers moved through his ship like deadly shadows. They wore black armor that seemed to absorb light, carried weapons that fired in complete silence, and moved through the ship's ventilation systems like creatures from a nightmare. How are they doing this? Rex whispered to his aide as they barricaded themselves in the command center. Sir, our sensors show they are using our own ship's layout against us. They have hacked our computer systems and know exactly where every room and corridor is located. The human Marines, led by Sergeant Miller, had indeed taken control of the ship's computer network within minutes of boarding. Miller studied the ship's blueprint on his tactical display and marked targets for his team. Johnson, take your squad to the engine room. Peters, you handle weapons control. I want this ship dead in the water in 5 minutes. What about the crew, Sergeant? Asked Corporal Johnson. Standard procedure. Anyone who surrenders gets treated. According to the Geneva Convention, anyone who fights gets treated according to human military doctrine. The difference, as the Vorthans quickly learned, was significant. Meanwhile, in space, Dr. Hayes was implementing the most terrifying aspect of human warfare: technological adaptation. Her science ships had been analyzing Vorthan technology during the battle, reverse engineering their systems in real time. Admiral Rodriguez, she reported, we have successfully decoded their communication protocols. We can now intercept and jam all Vorthan fleet communications. Excellent. What about their weapons? Even better, sir. Their energy weapons use a frequency we can disrupt. We can make their main guns completely useless. Rodriguez smiled coldly. Do it. Across the battlefield, Vorthon ships suddenly found their weapon systems failing. Their energy cannons powered down, their missile guidance systems went offline, and their tactical networks collapsed into chaos. General Corvus, trapped on his disabled flagship, watched his mighty fleet fall apart in ways that defied military logic. Human ships were not just defeating his forces, they were turning Vorthon technology against itself. Sir, Captain Vex reported with despair, we have lost contact with over half our fleet. The humans have disabled 37 ships without destroying a single one. They are capturing our entire battle group. But the humans were not finished. As the last Vorthon resistance collapsed, Admiral Rodriguez implemented the final phase of the human plan. The colony ships that had puzzled General Corvus began deploying to the captured Vorthon vessels. Captain Davis, commanding the colony ship New Hope, opened communication channels to all captured Vorthon ships. Attention Vorthon personnel. You are now prisoners of the Human Defense Force. You will be transferred to detention facilities for processing. Any attempt at resistance will be met with immediate force. What the Vorthons did not understand was that the humans were not just capturing ships and personnel. They were gathering intelligence on the entire Vorthon Empire. Every computer system, every database, every communication log was being copied and analyzed by human intelligence teams. Dr. Hayes, working with a team of cyber warfare specialists, had access to information the Vorthons had never intended to share. Admiral, you need to see this, she reported urgently. Rodriguez joined her at the analysis station, where holographic displays showed the structure of the Vorthon Empire. What am I looking at, Doctor? The location of every Vorthon military base, supply depot, and command center. Their fleet positions, troop movements, and strategic plans. Admiral, we now know more about their empire than they think we do. Rodriguez studied the data with growing understanding. The Vorthons had made their empire efficient by centralizing everything. All their major decisions came from a handful of core worlds. All their supplies flowed through predictable routes. They had built a military machine that was powerful but not flexible. Doctor, how long would it take to cripple their entire empire? If we target their supply lines and command centers simultaneously? 6 months, maybe less. Admiral Rodriguez opened a communication channel to Earth, Mars Command, and the Jupiter Defense Fleet. This is Admiral Rodriguez reporting from Calorian space. Phase 1 is complete. We have defeated the Vorthon battle fleet and captured their command structure intact, requesting permission to proceed to Phase 2. President Walsh's voice came through clearly from Earth. What is Phase 2, Admiral? Total dismantlement of the Vorthon Empire, Madam President. We now have all the intelligence we need to end their threat permanently. There was a pause before the President responded. Permission granted, Admiral. Show them what happens when they threaten innocent people. As human ships began organizing captured Vorthon vessels and preparing for the next phase of operations, General Corvus sat in his detention cell aboard a human prison ship. He had spent his entire career conquering other species, but he had never encountered anything like humanity. The humans did not just fight to win battles. They fought to win wars. And they had turned his simple invasion of Calorian space into the beginning of the end for the Vorthon Empire. Outside his cell's viewport, human ships stretched to the horizon, preparing for operations that would make today's battle look like a minor skirmish. 6 months after the first battle in Calorian space, Ambassador Talon stood on the observation deck of the newly rebuilt Calorian capital city, watching human construction crews install the final components of an orbital defense platform. The massive structure bristled with weapons technology that made the old Vorthon fleet look primitive. It's hard to believe, he said to Admiral Rodriguez, who had come to oversee the completion of the defense grid. 6 months ago, we were facing extinction. Now we have the most defended worlds in the galaxy. Rodriguez nodded, sipping coffee from his travel mug. Your people earned it, Ambassador. You were brave enough to ask for help when you needed it. But this... Talon gestured at the orbital fortress hanging in space above them. This is far more than we asked for. We only wanted transport ships. Humans don't do things halfway, Rodriguez replied with a slight smile. When we solve a problem, we solve it completely. The problem, as it turned out, had been bigger than anyone expected. Using intelligence gathered from captured Vorthan ships, human forces had spent the last 6 months systematically dismantling an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for over a century. Captain Morrison, now promoted to Commodore, had led the HYF assault on the Vorthan home system. His fleet had arrived to find a massive military complex protected by automated defense platforms and over 200 warships. It should have been an impossible battle. Instead, it had lasted exactly 4 hours. The humans had used the Vorthan's own centralized command structure against them. Dr. Hayes and her cyber warfare teams had infiltrated their computer networks weeks before the attack, turning their defense platforms into weapons that fired on their own ships. When the Vorthan fleet tried to respond, they found their communications jammed and their weapons systems corrupted by viruses designed specifically for their technology. "Sir," Lieutenant Davis had reported from the bridge of Morrison's flagship, "the Vorthan capital is requesting terms for surrender." Morrison had accepted their surrender, but not on traditional terms. The humans did not just want to defeat the Vorthan military. They wanted to ensure the Vorthan Empire could never threaten anyone again. The solution was unprecedented in galactic history: complete social reconstruction. Instead of simply occupying Vorthan worlds, human administrators began relocating Vorthan civilians to monitored colonies where they were taught new ways of living. The warrior culture that had driven their empire was systematically replaced with education, agriculture, and peaceful technology. General Corvus, still in human custody, had watched these changes from his detention facility on Luna. "You cannot change an entire species," he had told Dr. Parker during one of their regular interviews. "We're not changing your species," she had replied patiently. "We're giving your people choices they never had before. Your empire forced everyone to be soldiers. We're showing them they can be farmers, scientists, artists, or anything else they want." The results had surprised everyone, including the humans. Within months, former Vorthan warriors were volunteering to help rebuild worlds their empire had damaged. They learned new skills, formed peaceful communities, and began contributing to galactic civilization in ways that had been impossible under their old system. But the transformation of the Vorthan Empire was only part of what had happened. The galaxy itself had changed. On Earth, President Walsh reviewed reports from across human space. The response to the Calorian crisis had revealed capabilities that even human military planners had not fully understood. The coordination between Earth, Mars, the asteroid colonies, and the outer system had been perfect. Humanity had acted as one unified species in a way that impressed even their own leaders. "Madam President," General Kim reported during their weekly briefing, "we're receiving requests for assistance from 17 different species. Word has spread about what we did for the Calorians." Walsh studied the list. Species facing pirates, aggressive neighbors, resource disputes, and territorial conflicts, all looking to humanity for solutions. "General, 6 months ago, we were barely known outside our local sector. Now we're being asked to be galactic peacekeepers. Are we ready for that responsibility?" "The question isn't whether we're ready, ma'am. The question is whether we can live with ourselves if we say no." The president nodded slowly. The same moral imperative that had driven them to help the Calorians was now being applied on a galactic scale. Meanwhile, in the Outer Rim territories, Captain Webb was learning what happened when humans decided to solve multiple problems at once. Her task force had been assigned to help the Nexari Republic deal with space pirates who had been raiding their trade routes for decades. The pirates had expected another easy target. They had attacked human convoy escorts with confidence, planning to steal cargo and disappear into the asteroid fields where they had hidden for years. They had not expected human ships to follow them home. Within a week, Webb's Marines had cleared out pirate bases that had operated freely for decades. But instead of simply destroying them, the humans had implemented what they called aggressive rehabilitation. Former pirates were given choices: prison or jobs helping to protect the same trade routes they had once attacked. Most chose the jobs. "It's brilliant," Webb reported to Admiral Rodriguez. "These people became pirates because they had no other options. Give them legitimate work that uses their skills, and they become productive citizens. Back in Calorian space, Ambassador, Talon was receiving reports that amazed him daily. Human medical teams had cured diseases that had plagued his people for generations. Human engineers had built cities that could withstand natural disasters. Human teachers were working with Calorian children, sharing knowledge that opened entirely new possibilities for their civilization. "Admiral," he said to Rodriguez as they watched another cargo ship arrive with supplies and equipment, "my government is concerned about something." "What's that, Ambassador?" "We're worried about becoming too dependent on human help. What happens if you decide to leave?" Rodriguez was quiet for a moment, looking out at the stars. "Ambassador, let me tell you something about humans. When we make friends, it's for life. The Calorian Republic is now under human protection. That means forever. But what if our interests conflict with yours someday? Then we'll work it out. That's what friends do." As if to prove his point, a new message arrived on Rodriguez's communication device. It was from President Walsh, marked for immediate distribution to all human commanders. Effective immediately, the Human Defense Force is establishing the Galactic Protection Initiative. Any species facing extinction, invasion, or oppression may request human assistance. All requests will be evaluated based on need, not politics or resources. Talon read the message over Rodriguez's shoulder. "You're making this policy official?" "We're making it permanent," Rodriguez confirmed. "The galaxy has lived with empires like the Vorthons for too long. Someone needs to make it clear that bullying entire species has consequences." Across the galaxy, the message was being received by dozens of species, some with hope, others with concern, and a few with outright fear. Humanity had announced its intention to become the galaxy's protector, whether other species wanted protection or not. On the former Vorthon homeworld, now renamed New Harmony, former General Corvus worked in an agricultural research facility, developing crops that could grow on damaged worlds. It was peaceful work that would have been impossible under the old empire. "Do you think they're right?" he asked Dr. Parker during one of her visits. "The humans, I mean. Can species really change?" She smiled, watching him tend to plants that would feed refugees from worlds the Vorthon Empire had once destroyed. "General, what do you think?" As news of humanity's new role spread across the stars, one thing became clear to every spacefaring species. The age of conquest empires was ending. In its place was something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that went to war not for territory or resources, but simply because someone had asked for help. The Calorians had indeed made a mistake asking humans for help. They had expected transport ships and received the protection of the most powerful military force in the galaxy. It was the best mistake they had ever made.